Hi, I'm Apshi.
I'm Irfan.
I'm Shaza.
I'm Natasha.
And welcome to the Woke Up Show. The Woke Up Show is a podcast with a rotating panel where we talk about lots of different topics, big and small, serious and silly, in order to get more woke. So, thank you guys so much for being here today, and we're going to have a really fun conversation. I think something a little bit lighter than all the heavy stuff we've been talking about because the state of Malaysia is crazy. So today we're going to be talking about long distance relationships, and all of us here are in different long distance relationships, not just with significant others but also with family and friends. So maybe everybody can tell our viewers what kind of long distance relationship you're in.
I'm in a long distance relationship with my girlfriend. We've been at it for about 3 years. And initially, it didn't start off as a long distance relationship. I was in Singapore and she was in KL. But like 2 months in, she moved to Sydney. And then that's where it all started. So it's been a long time.
That's amazing though, 3 years to maintain a long distance relationship, not easy. What about you, Shaza?
Well, I guess I'm in a long distance relationship with my twin sister. She moved to Australia with her husband, who is a resident in Melbourne. And she moved last year, literally like a week and a half before the lockdown started. So, yeah, we've kind of been going at it right now. It's weird, but...
And it's tough because you can't visit.
Exactly. That was the initial plan, Like we're supposed to be able to kind of go back and forth, but everything was just like out the window because of the pandemic. So, yeah.
What about you, Natasha?
Well, I've been in a long distance relationship with one of my closest friends ever in my life, Apshi Vimal.
Is that
me? We've been in a long distance relationship for like 5 years now.
Yeah, it's 5 years. Been about 4 or 5 years.
And then I've been in a long distance relationship with my parents, I guess, for 7 years. Now coming to 8 years because I'm in Singapore and they're in KL. So I haven't seen them for a very long time, especially now because of COVID. Haven't seen them in like a year and a half.
That's crazy. Yeah. For me, I have, obviously Natasha is one of my best friends and I haven't seen her in like 5 years. I'm also in a long distance relationship with my sister who lives in Los Angeles. She's been living there for many years now, and I've actually been in a long distance relationship with her since pretty much 2014 because I went to university in New York and she was in Malaysia. And then she went to university also in New York, but America is so big. She was like 6-hour drive away from me, and we were not in close proximity. So yeah, we're all in these crazy long distance relationships that have just been made a lot harder by the pandemic. And we don't have to talk so much about the pandemic because we've been talking about the pandemic nonstop. Yeah, so how have you guys been, just generally, how do you kind of maintain these relationships apart from, I know we all definitely like call each other, but different relationships require different levels of, I guess, commitment in a way. I don't know if that's the right word because we're all committed to our relationships, but I would assume like Irfan, you would probably be speaking to your girlfriend a lot more than I speak to Natasha or my sister. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I talked to her maybe about at least maybe 4, 5, 6 hours in a day, depending on how heavy our schedules are.
Wow.
So it's a lot of FaceTime calls going back and forth. But I think we're pretty much accustomed to it, really. It becomes almost like the norm of our means of communication or just like the relationship itself in general.
I mean, because the majority of your relationship has been long distance. So you really had to learn how to have a relationship, like boyfriend-girlfriend relationship that's long distance. And that's amazing that you can make time like that. I guess you have to. That's the point of a long distance relationship is you have to make time.
Yeah. It took a while for us to get to a place where I think right now we're not really like on each other's tail per se to be on like call every second of the day. It's kind of like somehow we've kind of ebbed and flowed to a really nice place where essentially if I have something on or if our schedules don't match, like I know it, like at least at the end of her day, I'll be able to talk to her before she heads to sleep, because that's around like 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. my time. So either way, I think it was a lot of trial and error initially, and a lot of emotional fatigue. But I think right now, even in COVID times, we're okay.
That's good. I mean, it's good that you like were able to push past that emotional fatigue. That's a good way of putting it, because I think a lot of people don't make it past that, because it's a lot of work. I don't know why it's so much work, because when you're physically close to someone, you have to put in even more effort to physically see them. You have to leave your house, you take the train, drive or whatever. But some reason, calling someone up every day seems harder. It seems harder to make that time. What about you, Shaza? How is it with your twin? Literally, twins are like, telepathically communicate. You guys were so close. I remember you guys doing most things together.
Yeah, it was a bit strange. The thing is, I think when she left, obviously we didn't have the pandemic in mind, because that was literally just before the start of everything, and just her leaving was hard enough as it is, because not only are we sisters, but we're twins, and we literally have never been away from each other for more than 3 months at a time. And it took a bit of getting used to. I think in the beginning it was more like a shock to the system, because you're going through a pandemic, and at the same time my sister just left. And my sister and I, the thing is, we haven't been that close in our lives. And I think that only started maybe like 2 years before she left. 3 years before she left, that's when we started getting a lot closer. Like, sisters are sisters, but I think we started becoming more like friends and like best friends with each other. And, to see that all kind of happen. And she got married just the year before last year. And, that was like a big turning point for both of us, because it was, I guess, it's not that we didn't expect it, but it was strange to kind of acclimatize to that, like the dynamics of our relationship kind of changed. And when she moved to Australia last year, just like a week before the pandemic, the lockdown all started, we all had like this idea that, we're going to see each other like towards the end of the year or something, like she's going to come visit again and like, get most of her things that she didn't bring with her because she thought she was going to be able to come back. And in my head, I was like, I'm only going to see you in like a few months, so that's fine. And then the lockdown happened, and then, the whole thing just blew out of proportion. And we're trying our best to kind of stay in touch, but I think that's just the nature of our relationship. We've never really been very communicative, because I think we're so used to just having each other in our lives that we're like, you're always going to be there. Like, you're just outside the room. Like, it's there, right? But we're trying. I think that is what the pandemic has served us, is that we're kind of, there's a lot more effort when there needs to be, because I think we both understand that we have stuff to do in our day-to-day lives. And even though most of us are just stuck at home, there's still that, if you need me, I'm there. You can always call me or text me whenever. But we still send like memes and stuff on Instagram, so that's fine. We're still kind of in contact.
I know exactly what you mean, because even with my sister, I don't call her every day. Like with my mom, she calls my mom 2 times a day, before she goes to bed and when she wakes up in the morning. Like every single day, my sister calls my mom. She's a mommy's girl, obviously. But with me, I'll call her once in a while. I will just like chime in, obviously, when she's talking on the phone with my mom. But she sends me like stupid memes, TikToks, those small ways to like stay connected every day. She does put in that effort, which I appreciate, because like it's not easy. It's just not easy to call every day. What about you, Tash? I mean, I know with me how it is, but how is it with your parents?
I mean, I think it's similar with like how Aishi does it, where she'll talk to your mom like twice a day. For me, I don't really do twice a day. I'll call my parents maybe like
it's not for everybody to call your parents twice a day.
That's a lot. Twice a day is a lot. But I'll make it a point to talk to them at least like once a day. Like if it's through like our group chat, like me and my parents have like a group chat. Like sometimes my dad will send memes, like, and he thinks like he's funny.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, it's cute. But sometimes it's like, the typical like dad joke, like memes. And I'm just like,
that's the best
sitting in my room like, okay. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's Irfan's entire humor, that joke.
But yeah, definitely. Like my dad will send memes. My mom will send like updates of like little things like on our cat. Like she'll send like pictures of our cat. I'll send, like pictures of like what I made like in the day, like when I cook and things like that. But yeah, but other than that, FaceTime calls for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically the baseline of how we communicate now.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like I'm also like my sister, I'm also pretty manja. So when I was living away from my parents, like I would call my mom almost every day as well. And just like, like sometimes it's like, when you're a kid and you just call your mom and you're like, oh, I didn't realize it was like 4 a.m. and you just insist that they answer the phone no matter what. But like for me, like one of the biggest long distance relationships that I'm really proud of is my relationship with you, Natasha, because I don't find it there's not all my friends that I'm in long distance relationships do I keep up with the way I keep up with you. Similarly to everything we spoke about, like we do send each other those like videos and those cute things every day, but it's also those like, making time to call each other, like, and one thing that I find with these long distance relationships, which I think that we'll go into this after this, that's the line between romantic and the relationship with friends and family, is that I don't ever get upset if you can't make a call, if you forget, or if I forget. Like I feel like that just doesn't, it's not there, because I have a lot of security in this relationship. I don't feel like you not calling me equals to you not wanting to be my friend anymore. And I think that is the most important thing with long distance relationships. With family, you already feel secure. You're never going to be like, you're never gonna like worry that, oh my god, does my mom not love me? Like that feeling is not gonna be there. And with the friends and siblings and people that are really in your life that are basically family, you don't have that. But I do think that maybe with romantic relationships, even like with my ex-boyfriend, like we did like long distance for a month, and I felt that like level of like insecurity where if I didn't call him, as like every day or whenever we were supposed to call, that he would get upset with me. And I get it though. There is a difference, but I don't know what that difference is. Maybe Irfan, you have an insight to why that's so? Like, I guess it's just like a slightly added pressure with romance and love in that way.
Yeah, I guess so. Cause especially in long distance, you don't really spend much time together. So it kind of, I guess it's the unspoken rule is any free time that you have should be spent with me, right?
Yeah.
And so initially that was a little bit challenging for me, because I like maybe the first year initially, I think I was kind of bounded by that. And there were a lot of times where I was like, this is my time with the boys, or I'm going to the gym. I need like my me time when I'm either not in class or not at work. But I think over the months and years, I've kind of been able to communicate it better to her of why I needed that space, or maybe listen to why she feels that she needs that. Whenever I'm free, we have to communicate, or whenever she's free. And, so what I do is, I treat my relationship like a business. So every quarter, we have a relationship review. So it's like a very,
that's a good idea.
Yeah. So we have this relationship review where, like sometimes the problem with, communicating with a significant other is that a lot of the times the problems, you only tend to communicate the problems when it shoots up right at your face. And at that moment, like everything's heated, emotions are high, there's tensions, and you don't you may be communicating, but it's over like anger or whatever heightened emotion that you're having. You can't really listen to each other, because once one person gets angry, the other person has to go on the defensive, and then it's not a very constructive conversation. So I set aside maybe 1 hour every few months for us to like leave the ego at the door and talk to each other constructively. And there be moments where she's felt neglected, or I felt neglected, or some things that I wasn't so happy or she wasn't happy about, and then in a way we can like come up with a plan to either like try to understand each other and perspectives a little bit better and come to a compromise per se.
Wow, Irfan, that is incredible. I have never heard of anybody doing that before, and it is. Viewers, take note in your relationships. I think that this is something everybody should do. Because you're totally right. It's that I think that, especially like what you were saying, like, the free time feels obligated to the significant other. It's coming from a place of heightened emotion, of insecurity, of, obviously it's coming out of a place of deep care and love as well. Because she loves you and she just wants to spend time with you as much as she can because she physically cannot. But to take that time to let's leave the ego at the door and let's just talk. And I'm not going to get offended for what you say. You're not going to get offended for what I say. And I think that's really how you can build a long-term relationship that's long distance as well.
So it's like a little safe space for both of us to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I'm kind of speechless.
Relationship secrets, guys. Right? You know what? I do get a lot, I don't get a lot of flack, but I get she gets some flack. There are people that told her that, why do you treat a relationship like that? It's it's not even a relationship. You're almost discussing it like a business. But I like to take pride in using that slogan, treating it like a business. You know?
I think that
it is kind of an arrangement though. It's an arrangement between two people. And it's sometimes, like you said, it's good to leave, in a place where it's heightened emotions and all that stuff. It's good to look at it from a very structured point of view, just so that you can get to the root of the problem. I think that would work in any kind of relationships. That will help with the dynamics a lot.
Yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing. I feel like even with friendships and all, it's good to check in with your friend, because sometimes I think with relationships, you tend to bring up what is upsetting you, but with friendships, I think especially long distance friendships, it's you just kind of let it go and you let it build, and then you just kind of be rude to each other on text. So, just be very passive aggressive. But I really like what you said. And another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is also how you kind of show this love language to each other, when you're far apart. One thing I have noticed with both you, Irfan and Natasha, is that Irfan and Natasha, by the way, both live in Singapore, and Irfan and I have been friends for more than 10 years now. Natasha
probably
and I
about 12, 13 years.
Yeah, really long. And
wow,
Natasha, this is a close friend podcast. Shaza and I about 10 years, Irfan and I about 12, 13, Natasha and I 19. So we all friends here.
Yeah.
But one thing I see with both you, Irfan and Natasha, is that you guys always ask a lot of questions about the political situation in Malaysia, or whatever I'm sharing about on my social media. And I know obviously you guys have lived in Malaysia, so you care about this country. But I notice and I know that this is a subtle love language. This is a way for you to understand the situation in a country where maybe it's not just me, maybe also your other friends are living, or your family. But it's a way to be able to empathize with what I'm feeling. You understand that I'm frustrated because, of XYZ. You get why I post 20 stories a day about the political situation. I can see that effort, and it's not something that everybody will do. It's something that I think it's very thoughtful. And that is those are the subtle ways I think you show people how you love them and how you can understand the situation in which they're in. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I think for me, I think that's how we generally majority of the time we communicate. I think even 5 years ago, I was just replying to your Insta stories and then our conversations with Snapchat stories back then.
Yeah,
that was when it started, right? And then
era of Snap.
So,
I'm one of the last people left on Snapchat, by the way. I still love it. I still use it.
Oh my god, you still use Snapchat?
Yeah, I don't even have the app anymore, man.
Yes.
I send you guys all snaps sometimes. Nobody ever opens it. But Shaza, how do you sort of communicate your love languages, with your sister being so far away?
I think with my sister, it was something that we kind of grew into, because our love language when we were together was different, sort of. And then now that actually now that she's away, we're a lot more expressive with each other, which is, sometimes I would like to think that, not I would like to think, sometimes I do think like, okay, is it time wasted? Like all those times and all those years that we literally spent our entire lives together, more often than not. And we weren't as expressive as we are now. But I feel like it came at the time that we were both ready for it. And I feel like we had to go through that journey together. So now that she's away, and I think she does the same thing as you guys. She's still Malaysian, but she's just living abroad, she's living somewhere else. And she still feels that empathy towards us because she knows how things are here. She knows what's going on, and we keep her updated. She keeps herself updated. And she's always asking, my family, how they are, because I am currently living by myself, and my parents, I haven't seen them in months. So even though we're all in the same country, my family and I, it's sort of still like long distance. And with my sister, even more so for her. So for her, I think she's just kind of giving support wherever she can. She's very aware of, the instability that's happening here, not just in the country, but just like to us as people, to me as an individual. And, she's always like, if you ever need any help, like financially or anything like that, like just let me know, just call me, I'm always here. And I know she's always there. But that's the thing, we kind of have to find different ways or different avenues to communicate with each other. So sometimes I would, play Call of Duty with her and her husband together, because we'll all just like play together. And that's like our time to catch up. And then after that, if we have a bit more time, then we'll video call each other and just talk about random stuff, honestly. And then sometimes if my family calls, then we get to see each other there as well. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's any much different than before. I think it's just more expressive now because of the circumstance. It's more of like, now we both understand that, life is short. Sometimes things happen to us that we never expected. And, you would think that you have this whole plan of being able to see each other and keeping in contact and visiting. And then that just, is out the window. So I guess we're adapting. But, at the end of the day, I am very appreciative and I'm very grateful that we are able to kind of move past that and are now way more comfortable with talking to each other about stuff. Which before this, we're kind of more like in that nodding phase where we're just like, you okay? Yeah, okay, cool. Then we'll just like do our own thing. So now it's just that extra like effort on both sides. And I really, really appreciate that.
I like what you were saying about how sometimes it feels like it's time wasted, because with like siblings, I think we feel that like if we didn't achieve that perfect sibling relationship by the age of 18 when your childhood is over, is that you've kind of failed at it, but
you'll never have it again.
And you'll never have it. And there's a whole lifetime. Like you're gonna live until you're 80 or whatever age. You have so many years. Why do we close our minds to think that like, especially with our siblings, that if we didn't cultivate this perfect relationship when we were, 12, 13 years old and we didn't even know what we were doing, we wouldn't be able to do so when we're adults, when we actually have our head on our shoulders and we know what's up and we know how to communicate better than ever.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask you guys about is also like security. Like, how do you like cultivate security in your relationships? Because I feel extremely secure in a lot of my friendships. Like I feel like I'm good. I know we're like 4 lifers. I know this is not gonna end. I know even if I don't talk to you for 6 months, which it can happen. Like, when there's just something about when life is moving and there's a life that's right in front of you. Sometimes to speak to someone who is outside that life is a lot of effort, and we can get into that a bit later, but I still have that deep security. And how have you guys cultivated that in your long distance relationships, and how do you maintain it? I know that's a tough question because sometimes it just feels very very innate. It's just there.
Yeah. I guess for me, it'll be like a little different because it's being secure in a relationship and then being secure in a long distance relationship. And over time, you kind of just forget about it. It becomes second nature after a while. But there's definitely a building process to it. And one of the things is, both of us live independent lives over here, and either here and in Sydney for her. but I feel like that's such an added bonus. Because going into the relationship, I told her my expectations for this relationship is for both of us have our own separate lives and then be able to still have each other to complement that. Because I never wanted to be an anchor to her of the vice versa. So I think almost like having that long distance relationship at the start, because the plan was always one day we would come and be together and live in the same country. So we're in our 20s, we're still young. I have things that I want to do. Has things that she wants to do. So get that out of the way now. It was one of the main things that I wanted early on in the relationship. So the fact that both of us have our independent lives outside of each other, I don't like it when, because in the past, I feel like when I get into a relationship, you kind of merge into one person and have the same lives and the same friends. And that wasn't very attractive to me. I didn't want to be codependent on anyone per se. So I think the security comes with knowing that despite having our own independent lives, we still have each other.
Yeah. That's nice. It's nice to be able to have a relationship like that, because a lot of people, that idea would breed a lot of insecurity. And I think that's especially in long distance relationships, because whether you like it or not, you're going to have different lives in especially long distance. And it's not, how would you have the same life? Then you wouldn't have any friends and just be on the phone 24/7. But it's great that your relationship is able to look at that as something that is positive and not something that is negative, because a lot of people would look at that as something that was negative. What about you, Tash?
I mean, okay, for me, not gonna lie, when you first left New York and you got your group of friends in Malaysia, like, after a little bit, I did feel a little like, like not like disheartened, but like just a little like, oh, like she's so good without me, like, you know what I mean? But like that would like come and go, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like it's not like I felt that for like months or whatever. Like it would just like come and go. Like sometimes like if I were to message you and then you would take like a little while to like message back, I'd be like, oh no, like like you having fun without me, like kind of thing. But after a while I kind of just realized that, like you had your own life and you were starting a whole new adventure in Malaysia. You know what I mean? Like you were making new friends, and I was genuinely like really happy for you. But of course, like I missed you. I missed you like being next to me. I missed going on like adventures with you. So I just,
because we were definitely like attached at the hip before I left. Especially like the last like few months, like we really were just like together 24/7. Like so after a while, it was just like, like just she has her life and I have my life, and our little messages here and there, and us sending each other like memes and like all that on Instagram and whatnot definitely helped, and it just kind of became like what your concept, like second nature after a while. Yeah. And I know what you mean. I know what you mean, though. Even when I see you move to Singapore and make new friends and all that, of course it does kind of, it does, when you see your best friends making new best friends, of course it just kind of, it does kind of, it'll give you those little butterflies, like, oh no.
Yeah,
but then you
like,
also have to kind of take yourself aside and be like, no, I want her to have a best friend in this other country, and I want her to have a life, and I want you to succeed and have fun and have this friend group, and I'm excited to become like part of this, like meet your friends. And like I remember when you were thinking of moving back to Malaysia, you were like, oh, but I don't know if I'm gonna like have any friends, and I was like, girl, all my friends are your friends. That's what's gonna happen. Like there's no question about it. But I get that. I think that acknowledging your insecurity is obviously like the best thing to do for yourself. And it's not easy. It's just not long distance relationship. I think across the board is just not easy. But the only ones that I would say that I could a little bit easier is with family, because the security I think is very strong. Do you feel that way, Shaza, that the security like in your relationship with your sister is very strong? You never feel like insecure about it?
Yeah, I think that's definitely like it's a given, especially with family. I think also it depends on the kind of relationship that you have with your family, obviously. But with my sister, it grew into that, and that's something that I appreciate to the core because I guess before she left, I guess the fact that she was getting married was already kind of like the first epiphany, or I'll call it like the first little death. That was truly, for me, what I feel like as a twin sister, especially, it's like a separation of some sort. Like immediately when she got married, it took me 2 weeks after her wedding to really process what was going on. And obviously I was so happy for her, and that happiness overwhelmed everything else. But then after it died out, like after the wedding, that was when it really settled in. And I would say that's like the first mini death that I felt before she left last year. That was kind of like okay, well, we're definitely going to be in different places now. Like this is not just her moving to another apartment with her husband. This is her moving to another country and starting a life there. And I don't know when we're going to be able to have that much time with each other again. Like there's that limitation already. But I think the fact that it happened in phases, that helped a lot. I did feel that what you guys feel, like in a friendship, you kind of do feel like, oh, this person is going on in their life. And it's almost like, do I feel like I'm being left out of that life? Do I feel like I'm separated from that life now, especially with somebody that I grew up with, somebody that's been there my entire life? So that was a lot of new emotions that I needed to process. But the fact that she felt the same way, I think that helped a lot because she was excited about everything, but she still had that feeling in the back of her head. And it only kind of we both came to terms with it after her wedding, and in between that period when we're still together. So we made a point to each other to just appreciate the time that we have left together physically with each other. But for my sister, it's a lot harder because before she got married, she was in a long distance relationship with her husband. Ever since they got together, they were in a long distance relationship for 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. He was still in Australia and she was here.
Oh my God, literally Irfan and his girlfriend.
Yeah, and they would only be able to see each other like once or twice every year, and they would try to make the most of it. So every time she would go to Australia, she would stay there for 3 months, and then she would come back. And then if the husband, my brother-in-law, would come here, he would stay for as long as he can, and he'll go back. So the fact that she had to kind of go through that for the first 3 years, and then after that, have this long distance relationship with her family, I can't imagine how she's going through with it, especially now in the pandemic. But, I'm happy that she has the support system that she needs. And, she's always just wanting to make sure that my family's okay. And, like you mentioned before about that family dynamic, you feel like you're running out of time when you don't reach a certain point in your life where, our relationship is that's what it is. That it can never change, it can never evolve. But this pandemic specifically has helped my relationship with my siblings and my family the most. Because all of us are separated from each other. Like no one is in close proximity. We're all
every relationship became a long distance relationship.
Yeah. Literally. So it was, I think that kind of it solidified our relationship, which is a weird thing. Like how usually people say, absence, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. But I guess ours was more like the opposite. Absence does make the heart grow fonder, and there were efforts from each side to make it stronger and to make it work. Because I think all of us reached that level of maturity to a certain degree, but also like we all had an unspoken understanding that we cannot let our relationship be this way forever, especially now that we're all separated. So we're a lot more closer now, which is weird because we used to live in the same house, like we did not have that relationship going on. And I always felt that, I'm never going to have that kind of family. But the fact that all of us are actively making an effort, the siblings specifically are making that effort to have that family, it's overwhelming, like to take in that kind of change in the pandemic. But I guess that's what it brings to us. So I think we should keep that forward. If I just do it, let's just do the most of what we can.
Shazza, you're just getting a little bit soft. Maybe you need to just get a bit closer to your mic. But I completely agree with what you were saying, is that I think that it's effort. That's what it comes down to. Sometimes we take for granted the people that are in our day-to-day lives, that we don't take time to call them. We don't take time to actually talk to them because we're busy. We're moving, we're doing things not pandemic times, obviously. But I wanted to tell you guys about this thing. I had this friend when I was in New York. And I hope he doesn't listen to this because we're cool now. But him and I were really close, and he had to move back to the state that he lived in. And we were all like, we were in this like friend group, me, him, his boyfriend, and some other people. And when he left, I was like, oh, do you want me to like, stay friends with your boyfriend, or what do you want? All of this. And he was like, yeah, just keep an eye on him. And our friendship stayed close. We called every day for about a month, and then it started to fizzle because I think what he started to feel was a deep insecurity that I had kept up the relationship with his boyfriend. And obviously they were gay. There was nothing romantic or anything there. We were just meeting for coffee every day. Like we just made time an hour before I had class and he had work. We'd go and grab a coffee at the coffee shop near where we lived. We lived close by. And I saw that relationship really fall apart with my friend, because my friend is the one that moved. His boyfriend was just someone I met through him and that I also grew to love. But I really saw that relationship fall apart because this person was unable to communicate the insecurity. And it sucks when you leave, or when someone leaves, life goes on. And that's really hard. Like when I left New York and I saw, like Natasha, you and all the friends and my other friends, I saw everybody's life going on without me. It is a bit like, oh my gosh, I guess this kind of sucks. But my life also went on. I moved to another country and I made new friends and I had this new life. So it is difficult. It is difficult when life goes on, because I'm sure like for you, Shaza, when you look at your sister having this new life with her husband and her new friends and her job and all of that, it is like, oh, this is a life I'm not part of. But she can look at your life with the friends that you guys have in common, and that those friendships are still maintained, and you guys still do stuff together, and that's like, oh, their life went on without me. And that's hard. I think it's hard, and I think that good relationships are able to get past that feeling because everybody feels it. Yeah. And okay, so when we spoke, like you were talking about your like family and how now everybody's put in effort to communicate because of the pandemic and the lockdown and all that stuff. But I just wanted to ask you guys about this because I also don't know how to answer this question, but I found it very interesting how it was easier for me to maintain a long distance relationship with people who were already part of my day to day. Like the friends that I would typically go to lunch with, go to party with, all of those stuff. It was easier for me to stay close to them. Like I even do this like game night with some of my friends from ADP. And the thing is that like, yeah, I'm close to one or two of them, but I'm not close to all of them. Like I wouldn't call them up to chit chat or anything, but I speak to them more than I speak to some of the people that I'm actually closer to that live in other countries. And even with my relationship with Natasha, like when she was in New York, maybe it's time difference as well, we caught up less than when she's in Singapore now. And I feel like I cannot explain it because I do have to, we do have to carve out time for these people. We do have to like make, put in our planner, make sure we're home, all of those stuff. But why is it easier to do so with the people who are like physically near us? Do you think it's just time difference?
I think it was time difference for me and you. It was.
Yeah. I think that plays a part. Yeah. But I guess it's just a question that left me very confused because I just don't get it. Because I have a friend who's in Taiwan and I consider her one of my best friends and there's no time difference. But we talk less than the friends who are like living, in PJ, for example.
It's also maybe commonalities, right? Like of the circumstance you're in. Because I feel the same way with my friends who are, all over. Some are in Hong Kong, some are in Indonesia. And although we are all going through a pandemic, we are all going through it differently. And even without a pandemic, I would say it's kind of the same thing. I feel like maybe in some way you kind of feel that you hope that these are also the people that they can go about their life, you can go about your life, and then when you connect with each other, you connect with each other. And I don't know, maybe sometimes we do take that for granted unknowingly. I do feel that way, but whenever, either one of us contacts each other, like we'll try to catch up, and it's usually like 3-4 hours long. But it's the kind where you don't, like you said, you don't do it as often as the people in your close proximity close proximity, even though you guys are not really that close. I mean, that's from my own experience, I would say. Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, go ahead, Irfan.
No, so the question is, why is it easier to essentially hang out more often with people within your...
But I don't mean like physically. I mean like even pandemic time, because we're all technically in long distance relationships, even with the friends that live 15 minutes away. I still find it easier, I guess, mentally to text the friends that are, you know, in my day-to-day life, technically before pandemic, versus the friends that live, you know, in other countries, despite time difference. There can be no time difference between us.
Yeah. I guess what Shaza said makes sense of the commonality in what you're doing in your day-to-day. Like, I guess even though I'm going through a pandemic away, I can still see people, right? So for example, like if you're working and you have your work friends that you see on a day-to-day basis, like having lunch with them is easy. Going out for Friday night drinks is easy. Hanging out on a Sunday for lunch is easy because you can more or less talk about surface level things that's going on at work, around what's going on, you know, with the boss, the colleagues, little office gossip and all that. But the conversations that you have less often with people that are technically that you've been friends for longer and are closer to you, even though those are less frequent, those usually mean the most, doesn't it?
That's true.
For example, I could have my 5 closest friends that are all living in different continents, and we would just talk for maybe 2-3 hours, and we just pick off from what we are talking about, what has been going on for the past year. You know, like it takes me back to I would say like high school, but because we've kind of grown up, we've all grown up, we've all led our individual lives, but when we all talk, it takes us all back to that moment. Like the vibe is the same. Everyone's kind of on the same level. You grew up together. So I guess that would be the main difference, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. I think that's very true. It's a commonality. Is that like, you know, the experience that we are having is very different than even the experience in Malaysia versus Singapore. Like when Natasha was telling me that you guys were having this kind of lockdown, and I was like, oh, how many cases? I think it was like less than 100. And I was like, damn.
I mean, my sister had a lockdown. It's 4 cases in Melbourne. They straight up just closed for a whole week. And she's pissed off because they keep going in and out of lockdown. And I'm like, how many cases? She said, 4. The most they've had is like 10. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say at that point. I'm just like, it's good that your country is doing something that's far more efficient than ours. But I digress. What we're talking about.
If we start talking about the pandemic, we are going to be talking about 3 hours. But yeah, that's definitely, I think, a big factor. And I just feel like sometimes it feels like there needs to be I need to especially with the friends that I don't catch up with like once a month or so, like the ones that it's spaced out, it's like I need to kind of, I need to tell you about this, I need to tell you about that, and tell you about all these different things that have happened to me. And you kind of like come with this like checklist and okay, let's have the agenda for this call. And that maybe is also part of why it's a little bit more difficult, because you do have to kind of remember everything you want to tell them. But like you said, Irfan, the minute you get on that call, it's like, hours. Let's just go back to what it was in hours. Hours fly by. All right. Well, that's literally, we've almost been going for an hour now. And it's already 7:35. I think maybe a little bit under an hour. But I don't actually have any more questions. But if you guys have like any advice, like how can you cultivate these beautiful long distance relationships? Like I think what you said, Irfan, about the like relationship what did you call it? Checkpoint? Relationship review. Relationship review. That was a great piece of advice for sure. What do you guys have any like advice to people who maybe are in long distance relationships, maybe are struggling, even with the friends that do live 15-20 minutes away that we are currently in long distance relationships with because of the pandemic? Tips and tricks for LDR? Don't get into one. You're gonna pay for that one, Irfan.
I think it's all about effort. And I think that no matter how big or how small, like even if it's like a little, like even if you like see something that reminds you of them, like just send a little clip of like a little video, you know, like on Instagram or whatever, or send like a picture of whatever it is, like through text. And I think it's just like a nice reminder of like, hey, I'm here, like you're still in my life to me. You know, and that's at least what I do right now with my friends who are in New York. Like I barely talk to any of them, but they'll send me little things. I'll send little things to them. And then at least with one of my friends, like we make sure that we talk to each other at least once a week. FaceTime call, even if it's for like 5 minutes or like 2 minutes, even when he's just like driving like to work or something, like, you know, just like those like little things. I think that's what really matters.
Yeah, definitely. It's at the end of the day, it's all about effort. That's the only way to maintain any relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Shaza? Any advice? I mean, you're also in a long distance relationship with one of your best friends who lives in Indonesia, right?
Yeah, actually, I guess technically now, if you think about it, I am in a long distance relationship with a lot of people, considering that I really haven't seen anybody in not just months, but also sometimes years. But I think at the end of the day, it's just about having that compassion and consideration for each other. We're all just going through our own lives, and we have to do things on a day-to-day to kind of survive through that. And I think I'm lucky enough to say that the people that I have in my life right now, everybody is, you know, kind of in tune with each other, and they understand the certain things that goes on in your life where, you know, sometimes you don't have the capacity to catch up with people, or you don't have the full capacity to keep in touch every single day because it gets really, really exhausting. You get lost in your day. But I feel like as long as you have that understanding with each other, and this is something that maybe, especially if you're in a romantic relationship, you have to discuss about. But I think it's also really good to discuss about this with your friends as well. Like I have certain friends that you know, they've messaged me, but I haven't replied in a certain amount of time frame because I've just been out of it, you know, like, and I'm glad that they also understand, you know, it's a pandemic, like everyone's just really trying to cope and survive throughout this process. So it's really great to have that support system where, you know, even if they were to do the same to me whenever they're going through a hard time or they don't have the capacity for that, there's a space for them at the end of the day. And I'm grateful that the people that I have in my life that I have long distance relationships with, they keep that space and we have that mutual understanding with each other. So I guess it's just, you know, life is short. If you want to, you know, tell somebody something, you do. And if something reminds you of another person, you share it with them. Like that's about as much as we can. Do as much as you can. And I think after that, we'll see where it goes. But with my sister in particular, our relationship got stronger after she left, which is weird. But I'm grateful every single time we do talk to each other or share like dog or cat memes or videos on Instagram. Like I know that we both remind each other of like everything's remind us of each other, and we'll share it with each other. And that's, you know, as much as I can ask for at this point.
Yeah. I think that like what you said, compassion is very important because it's easy to become very allow your insecurity to take over and feel no compassion because you are like, oh, this person, you know, she's got a new friend, that's why she didn't remember to call me. But it's not that deep, you know. You need to, I think you need to ensure the security in your relationships. It's vital for long distance relationships. I think you can kind of mediate insecurity with relationships that are physically close to you, because you can, when you see them, you're like, okay, my insecurity is gone, but you don't get that. You don't get to see them. So you don't get to like, you know, have your insecurity kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like taken away by that. So I think it's important to recognize your insecurity. It's important to be understanding towards this other person and make sure that, you know, you cultivate a relationship where the other person knows that they can call you up whenever. And Irfan, this actually reminds me of one thing you sent to me a long time ago. We had a friend in high school who he actually passed away, and it was really sad. Like we all didn't know, and you know there were talks about maybe it was like suicide. Like it was just a very messy situation, and I think we were all really shocked. I can't even remember what year this was, at least 4 or 5 years ago. But Irfan sent me a message, and he was just like, hey, did you see what happened? And we were kind of talking about it. He was like, you know, if you ever feel that way, you can always talk to me. And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, thank you for saying that. Yeah, you said that. It was really sweet, which is just very weird. But you said something like that. And it stuck with me for years, because I was like, yeah, these are friends that I feel and I know that if I really needed to talk to you, I just needed your perspective, or I needed somebody to talk to in this moment, I can call you up, and if you are free, you would pick up. And I think that that's important to make clear, especially to the people that are not physically close to you. All right, so that's our show. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to like, share, comment, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And stay safe and stay woke, fam. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.